Awesome. All right, we can call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock, and Chief, if you'll do the roll.
On the floor, unless you want me to do it.
No, you don't need it. As long as it's noted, I am fine with that. We can move on for approval for the minutes from the January 24th, 2021 meeting. Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There we go. Well, second.
Take your pick. All right. Any edits or corrections? See none. All those in favor say aye.
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 It's been approved. And the appearance section. Nancy, do you want to speak during the appearance section or during the agenda items?
During
okay, great. So we're on to appearances, and we have one. I didn't see any by email, and I don't believe there's any online. Correct. All right. We have one, and that is regarding our one agenda item on here, and that's from Nancy.
Do you want me to just sit here, or do you want me to, does it matter?
As long as people can hear you, wherever
okay.
you feel most comfortable.
All right, so I assume I trust that everybody got my response today to what's on the agenda tonight. And I just wanted to come very briefly, as I said, because I have to go to another meeting, and say, first of all, again, thank you for your service to the city. In fact, one of the things that I did more recently was to count the number of citizens who serve on committees here. It's close to 120 citizens who which is pretty dang impressive. So I just really value that. Since folks, since we had a lot of people here the last time, and folks, I didn't know if folks are going to be coming tonight as well. I just wanted to reiterate a few things that I said in that thing that I drafted for you earlier today. One is, I just want this community to know, and I want you all to know, that we appreciate the safety concerns and that people have raised for the last 2 years that we've been looking at this, and we've taken it very seriously, and we haven't dismissed it. I know some people feel like it's been dismissed because we made a different choice than they would have chosen, but in fact, I get it, and we haven't dismissed it. Second, the Transit Commission will be working with staff and with Metro. And that staff most definitely, including both fire and public safety, and Dan as the director of public works, as we always do anytime we make any big change in the city, to create a plan for both short-term and long-term. What we need. And then, I would just reiterate that I don't think the discussion belongs here. It's not part of your charge. It's, as per the ordinances. It's not that I don't appreciate any one of your opinions or feedback, outside of formal committee business, but we all have our charge from the city, right? We don't take developments to the sustainability committee because there happens to be sustainability elements in a building that's being built or being proposed, right? So I would just say that I absolutely welcome anybody's input. As I said in the memo, I don't think that it belongs in this committee. And so with that, I'll exit. I just want to thank you again for taking the time, both this last meeting and I'm sure this meeting. And with that, I'm gonna head to my meeting. So yeah, thank you.
There was some information sent earlier. If there's any questions before Nancy has to leave that people have, now would be the best time If there's anything specific,
Right.
clarification.
If
Can I
there's
just ask a quick question,
Sure.
and maybe it's been decided, or maybe I
Yeah.
read this wrong.
Yeah.
About the whole intersection at Monona Drive and Femrite?
Yes.
Has that been changed, or is that just proposed that it might bypass that and go that alternate road? I'm looking
No,
at
it's been changed. The
Oh,
map
yes.
that I included.
The last one.
Was passed by the Transit Commission last week.
Okay.
So,
That was the last attachment.
so, and
Okay.
when the city council, passed. The motion to move to Metro as a whole, the one section of the route that was and was explained, it was still in flux precisely because. We always knew we wanted the bus to go by. Pier 37, and we always knew that we wanted it, but we also knew that we had to have it somewhat on Femrite because we have both people that live there and people that work there. That already use the bus and expressed strong support for Metro, so we had to figure out a way with Metro. Figure out how to make that work, and we were pleased. Metro was with us last week. On Zoom, they've been with us a lot, and I was pleased with the solution that they came up with. So we think actually we just got that much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any application?
You provided the information on the Public Safety Committee's charge in there.
Mhm.
Is there similar ordinance language for transit or another committee that does make it clear it's there?
Yes.
Okay, because I haven't seen that, so I'd be curious to
Yeah,
see
yeah, no,
exactly how
there's
you
a,
define
there's a
that.
definition of what and it effectively says it's the transit committee's responsibility to ensure that Monona gets the biggest bang for their buck, or that oversees, and makes decisions around bus transit only in Monona. It doesn't involve other modes of transit. We don't get involved in bike lanes, we don't get involved in sidewalks.
It's fast transit, yes.
It's actually it's a mass transit commission, yeah.
Live on air.
Does it
I guess my-
overlay refer to safety aspects? In the transit
Does it
charge?
refer to safety aspects?
There's some fuzziness, we talked about safety and public works last time too, so I'm just trying to get my head around
Yeah.
exactly where all the lines are.
Have it. I don't
He has it
know that
written.
it does.
Yes, it's
Are you pulling it up?
I have it. It's about 3 paragraphs.
Okay, in the ordinance itself?
Yes.
Okay, sure, go ahead, read
Just composition matter.
No.
Okay, we'll go to functions and powers.
Yep, that's the piece that matters.
The commission shall have the following functions and powers. 1, it should be the general duty of the commission to develop and recommend to the common council policies on the various elements of transportation and transportation facilities for the purpose of providing the safe, efficient, and economical movement of persons and goods in the city of Monona and the metropolitan area of service, and recommendations for the purchase of vehicles. These elements shall be limited to the operation of mass transportation, bus and/or taxi vehicles, and all matters usual or necessary to operate transportation by bus for disabled persons. 2, supervise and direct the expenditure of the transit budget with authority. A, by the commission chairman to authorize emergency mechanical repairs for transit equipment up to $1,000. B, by the commission to authorize repairs for any transit equipment owned by the city up to a maximum of $5,000 with the written consent of the mayor. C, by the commission to generally amend line items other than those discussed in subsection C, sub 2, sub A, and sub B above with the transit budget up to $1,000, provided no changes are made in the amount committed to regular urban service or specialized services. Here's 2 more. 3, on or before September 1st of each year, submit a budget to finance personnel to carry out existing policies of the council with alternatives for suggested changes. And 4, report to the mayor and council within 45 days after the close of each calendar quarter upon the financial status of the regular urban bus service and specialized services.
So the very first one obviously referenced safety use,
Yes.
right? And second, that's gotta be really old. Because for those of you that might not know, when Monona decided to go away from Metro in 1987, which was done under Mayor Richfield, the first thing that they did was to go out and buy their own buses from Appleton, actually some used buses from Appleton. And they ran their own service, so on that obviously references buses, like we own our buses and it's been a contract for a long time. Don't know exactly how many years, but a long time, so those ordinances are pretty old.
I was reading through the Public Safety Committee,
Yeah, I want to make sure that relates, because I know Nancy has. to-
right, but she,
Okay. Yep.
Nancy, you put that one up there, that what our function is supposed to be. And, you know, one of the major function being fire, police, EMS. Right above there was kind of a general statement on public safety in Monona. I think it was a number 2. And that confused me. And are we only police, fire, EMS? Or there was a general statement about safety in the city. And that one is where I looked at, well, is it anything that relates to public safety in Monona? Where is that limitation? Sorry, I didn't bring my phone. Where is the line of what the function is for this committee? And that's my concern. And I was wondering if you had noted that in your comments.
Connie,
And Angela, I haven't forgot about you. I heard your voice, so hang on.
Oh, thank you. I guess my question was similar to Connie's too. What's the purview of this committee, and how did it end up on our agenda if we have no say so or any? I guess I'm just confused how we ended up here.
Yep, and I can say, I think there's a difference of opinion regarding that second item. Of
Yeah,
what that
the committee
includes.
shall review and recommend ordinances affecting public safety to the common council.
Ordinances and policies.
Mhm.
Right.
And so that is where I was going with, where's the line?
Right,
You
so
know-
what I would say is this is not an ordinance or a policy. I
Okay,
mean, this is a service provider. You don't, you know, any more than hiring Pelletary for our trash collection, or, you know,
That's a good point. It's like, not like the public safety committee is reviewing the new garbage trucks that are driving on the streets.
right, so that's why I'm saying I don't think it applies, and I actually, you know,
so if we have a
reached out to the
garbage
staff
truck
today,
issue,
and they didn't think,
That would be
reached
public
out to the city staff today, and they didn't think it applied either, so not these two. But to our city administrator.
so if we would have a garbage truck issue,
Public Works.
like you said, and there was a public safety issue that someone reported to this committee, we would say, no, we can't look at that because it's not an ordinance that,
Right, you would refer
Even though it's-
you would refer to Public Works.
Yeah.
We
Same
do
thing.
that all the time. I
Same
mean,
thing with that.
Public Works has 2 things on the agenda next week that are related to safety that citizens of Garfield. Related to.
There's been an ongoing difference of opinion regarding that piece,
Oh,
and especially regarding the connection and collaboration between public works and public safety. That's
that was my
And then
concern is if we couldn't look at something instead of after the fact
Right.
and upset the whole apple cart. Is there any possibility that we can work together on certain issues when you hear them in your committee about public safety, so we can work together to not have what happened this last time with everyone showing up here to discuss this here instead of with you, and have it before the fact instead of after the fact?
Yeah, so it's not not troublesome to me. This is a very learned group, so I'm not at all troubled by you guys talking about it. I'm just saying that we never design anything, which is what this is about. What this is about is, right, the design of the system so that people feel safe. We never design anything by committee. Right, we have, I mean, if Public Works is doing something on the roads, they're working in some cases with outside people or within, and they're bringing whatever or Parks and Rec is designing a park, they're, you know, they bring it to the board, but the board is not designing on a weekly basis and discussing every jot and tittle, if, to use an old New England term. You know, about whatever they're creating. So I guess I personally don't feel like, and the Transit Commission has put forward the route that it's put forward and the hours that it's put forward after 2 years of working with Metro and getting a whole lot of community feedback around that and adjusting the route as a result of that and the hours as a result of that feedback.
Well, the experts.
And the council's already approved it, right? So it just seems like, again, you know, you guys can decide what you want to do, but I feel like the Transit Commission has already reached out to the staff, has already reached out to Public Works. I've already reached out to Brian. We'll continue to work with the department heads, which is what happens like when we do development. We don't take that development at Planning Commission if there are other departments involved because there's infrastructure as an example, or because we've got a utility line running under the lot. You know, we always reach out to the other departments. We always reach out to, you know, Public Works and Public Safety and whoever else who's impacted by that, to ask for department head feedback, because they're considered the experts. We don't go to their committee, we don't go to Public Works and ask the whole committee to discuss.
With the exception of when you bring up utilities, we actually do. Because that does go to Public Works.
Right, well, it depends on the extent
Utilities.
of the utility thing. It depends on whether it's how complicated it is, but it doesn't always go to committee. At most, we also get, you know, feedback just from the parties.
And it should be noted too that Madison Metro has risk management folks that are employed by Madison Metro and traffic engineers, and they are adamant that they will not put buses on streets that are unsafe. That's not their purview.
Right. And we just know that and residents know too, we're at the very beginning in terms of the safety related stuff, because the contract had to come first. Like, the contract with Madison Metro does not spell out every pad, every stop, you know, every crosswalk, of course not, because then as soon as a change was made or an adjustment was made, the contract would be invalid. Right, and we won't even, you know, we've already said that we're not even going to be shifting to Metro until at the end of this year at the earliest, because it takes Metro a minimum of 6 months once a contract is signed before they can even get their end of the system. So, you know, we've already said we're going to be working on all of the safety related things, you know, between now and then. Already started, but I shared last week's meeting, and you know, agenda and the packet that came in last week's meeting, and we'll continue to do that. So
Thanks.
It's not that I don't welcome your input, it's just that I don't know that.
I'm just confused where the line is.
Right.
And how to figure out that line.
Sure, yeah. So, the read that I got from the city administrator, and certainly my read of the ordinances is that public safety is to concern themselves with ordinances and policies, of public safety. And this isn't an ordinance or policy contract.
Thank you.
Angela, did you have more question, or did that satisfy the question you had?
That's fine. Thank you for asking.
Absolutely. Larry, since I'm looking up at the screen, did you have any questions for Nancy? I know she has to leave here promptly.
Again, you can make another choice. I'm just telling you my point of view from the transit standpoint.
Thank you for bringing that.
I appreciated the opportunity to hear input from the citizens. but I think I still favor having the bus route here. My wife used to take the bus to campus when she was going to college. And I asked her, I said, well, what kind of ridership was there? She said those buses were full. And I think we have a lot of safety concerns with traffic here in the city that go beyond the buses. There are a lot of construction vehicles that go through the city. There are citizens who speed and who run stop signs, and they pose a threat to pedestrians, other motorists, etc. So, and I remember when the bus service was stopped by the previous administration, and I think that caused a lot of inconvenience for a lot of people in the city, and especially elderly people or people who don't have vehicles. And there may be people who drive to work in Madison who will not do that anymore because of parking and other issues like that, and will take the bus. So it might not specifically be under the purview of this committee, but it was interesting to hear the discussion last week.
Thanks, Larry. I noticed that we're on the appearance section item. I know you have to be.
Yeah, can I just say one other thing?
Absolutely.
So I would just say one other thing before I leave, because and Barry made me think of it, which is within the last week, I've had a couple of people suggest to me that when I suggested that this is a DEIB priority for the city, which is the DEIB report, it's the #1 thing in the DEIB report that was produced by Citizens Committee. I've had a couple of people suggest to me that some other people were offended by that for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why, but the inference was that there were some people of color that were offended by that we were somehow using people of color to make this choice. So I just want to be clear. When I said that this is a DEIB, commitment which the city has made, I'm not referring to ethnicity, or only ethnicity. I am referring to the fact that a transit system that only runs 2 times in the morning and 2 times in the afternoon and goes to 2 locations downtown and only goes for a mile radius, except for going downtown, a mile radius throughout Monona, is not equitable access rather, to transit. It's just not. If you work any other hours, or more than one job, or you need to get to the geriatric center in, Fitchburg or American Family, or you need to get someplace other than UW in the hospital, you don't have access. So when I refer to it as important for inclusion and equity, and it's also the case as it relates to the route that was chosen, and the Transit Commission's worked on a long time. Same thing, the golden standard for bus stops is bus stops, which is what you saw from last week's meeting, bus stops that are no more than a half mile apart from each other. That being the gold standard, because in the United States, it's not the case in Europe and other parts of the world, but in the United States, if you have to walk more than a quarter of a mile to a bus stop, you don't. You get in your car instead, if you can get in your car. Most people will not walk more than a quarter of a mile to get to the bus stop. So that's why, so if it's half mile apart, then regardless of where you are on the street, you're a quarter of a mile away from the stop, right? So anyway, that's part and parcel of why the route is designed the way it is too. And I try to explain some of that, particularly as it relates to Southwest 77. So with that, I appreciate you listening. Again, thank you for your service. Thank you for your time. Good luck with the discussion tonight. And look forward to seeing you around the hood.
All right, seeing no others for the current section, we can close that and move on to item 5A, which is unfinished business and discussion regarding the possible action on the C3 route, now a 38 route, related to traffic and or other safety concerns. And it seems like there was some information that was shared with the group, and it was intended to be a summary of what was shared either from the prior public hearing section or other additional information, trying to compile it all in one space, because that would kind of ongoing questions that had come up of like, hang on, it seems like there's lots of different items that have been talked about, but haven't been able to identify one location with them in a logical kind of sequence order of based on the current route, what were the identified areas that people have talked about, in their opinion, as a possible safety concern, not necessarily intended to be the list of the safety concerns, but intended to compile people's feedback in the spot. I then updated the one item that I had shared previously of a possible recommendation regarding a motion, and made some minor adjustments to that based on what I compiled up above based on the feedback, as well as the kind of short and kind of, I think, difficult discussion this group had of like, hang on, wait a minute, like what's our role, what's our charge? And clearly, as you kind of heard, I think clearly some difference of opinion regarding charge of each group, and people that have served on this group for a long time would say there are clearly things that this group has addressed that are not purely ordinance or policy items as it relates to safety. We have addressed many, many items that would be similar in nature. And so I think there is some difference of opinion on what is within the purview of this group or not. And I will leave it there and open up for discussion.
I think jurisdictional questions aside, we're aligned here. The information Nancy provided was all good news to me that spoke to a lot of what we were talking about here. And there's an information sharing question associated with that. It would have been nice to have that, and that didn't really necessarily flow through from our summary, and that's a practical concern if nothing else. And it does make me wonder how specific we want to be in anything. But I also don't necessarily see the harm in saying something to the effect of, these are good things, keep going, we support this. Maybe we don't want to prescribe specific intersections and stuff like that, because that's already obsolete or going to become obsolete. But saying something doesn't, we can talk about jurisdiction all we want, but on the substance, we agree and we confirm that.
Yeah, I think your point's well taken. A lot of the materials, I think, share a very similar theme, but I think, and Alderman say, I'll speak and then you fill in, because you're the one that shared this information earlier of, hang on, where's the compiled list and how have we addressed that item? And I think that is one of the pieces that I think that was able to help with, of like, these items have been, here's where they're being addressed. And going back to the original reason why this was brought to this group and why I put it on the agenda was that was a question I had at council when we were discussing this item and it was passed. But there were questions that were raised, and I mentioned, where are we addressing these? Where is the list of like how we're going to address A, B, and C? The answer was, it's not. And so this was a logical place to bring that, to at least catalog those items and name how it is that we are addressing them. And Rick, if I caught you wrong or I paraphrased that wrong, please correct me. And
well, I do appreciate the fact that you itemized what people's concerns were. I think that was good to have a written record of what people are saying and to capture that for future reference. And I think it will help as they develop the final route. As they scoped out FemRite, it came to some changes. And it might have happened anyway, but it was nice to know that that was a concern and that we had addressed it. And I'd like to see something in the written record that shows that from this list too. I do think that a lot of times it's just discussion. And people don't know that what the discussions are that are happening between staff and Alder and consultants or Metro or outside contractors. So it's just nice to have that available for the public to see and people who are concerned to see. So I guess I'm hoping that there'll be more of a definitive record of these discussions so that everyone can have their fears allayed. Not that it wouldn't happen otherwise or couldn't happen without these comments, but it just seems to facilitate matters to have it all done and addressed.
One item to note was the Femrite change is actually a different change than what was originally being scoped out. Originally, the scope out was to still proceed south on Monroe Drive, east onto Femrite, and then make the loop, but then have the return come up Broadway, Monroe Drive. And one might wonder, was part of hearing the concerns at a previous meeting or some additional information or that may have been already in some of the works, but the shift of not turning left at a uncontrolled location at the top of the hill. That's a nice new change that was not there previously and not being voiced as an option.
Right.
So I think that
I mean, there was a lot of discussion to council about Femrite.
Yep.
I think we were told that it has to be on Femrite and it has to be this way. And what we've seen is a change since then. I'm not sure how it went into Metro, but it came out with a nice new change.
Yep.
But what was the specific ask? I'm not even sure.
Others.
So I think it's great to have this list. I think just forwarding it to the council might be our best option at this point, just to let them know that it's on record as a matter of concern.
I've got motion language in my head, so maybe I should just lay it out.
Sure,
Absolutely.
And if you throw it out there, give me a second so we can keep discussing. If not,
exactly.
like, we're in a stalemate, so.
So motion for the committee to express support for continued attention to safety in the negotiation process, including but not limited to the list we've compiled here that can be put in the minutes so that it is documented, to your point, and including but not limited to continued collaboration with city staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right.
Well done.
Yeah, I like that.
Yes.
Whoa.
Government employee.
Government employee, yes.
Just to clear up where we are as a committee, because hearing, it sounds like there are some on the council that think it's ordinance and policies and something, it's more than that. Would there be, let's say, and I wouldn't be for this, let's say, in order to satisfy both sides in some ways, if we said as a group we wanted to introduce an ordinance, and I'm not suggesting this at all, let's say we want an ordinance for safety reasons that the buses only run between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Then would our committee, if we base that on safety, now could we, legitimately might be a bad word, but then we could discuss that and forward that ordinance then to the council.
I think you would end up having what unfortunately would, I think, be a political mess, my words.
Okay.
Because of that, you would have great tension, right? Of a recommendation for a contract to do X, Y, and Z, and then another group saying, we're suggesting an ordinance to restrict whatever to X, Y, and Z. And I think that's why myself and some others that have chaired this over the years, I think have seen item 2 on there as ordinances, policies, practices, connections to the people. We've addressed other items as it relates to physical structure of streets, which Public Works would say, that's ours. We've clearly talked about physical structures here. That is not a policy and it's not an ordinance from us. We've talked about restricted parking, which some have said over the years is that public safety or public works. I mean, the list goes on and
that
on.
is, yeah, specialty units, drones, we've talked about.
So there are a variety of pieces, and I think, to your point, like, yeah, we could add anything we want if we couch it in the idea of like, yep, we're gonna create an ordinance around this item that has to do with whatever. I just don't think that's a healthy way to go about it. But
Like I said, I wasn't suggesting.
yes,
that.
yeah. We'll make sure that we don't write that.
Right, yeah. But I was just trying to figure out again, the scope of our.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it seems to, I mean, talking about that at this point seems to miss the forest for the trees if we're all in pretty basic agreement about this too.
Yeah. Yeah. Connie, any other?
No, I'm good.
Angela or Larry? No? All right. So we have a motion on the floor and we have a second. And any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I have passed.
Aye.
Awesome, thank you, Angela. Thank you, Larry. Unfinished business is closed. We have no new business. I'm looking at the wrong agenda here. So we have no new business. Item 7 is any updates or discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and other efforts. Sure, do either department have anything specifically on?
Not specific at this point. I should have something next month. So.
Yeah, I was trying to think about my
You just got
monthly
back
report,
confirmation.
and I just got back. Bear with me. I don't believe I do. I talked about our dispatcher and hiring. Okay, so. I mean, the work we do, just like Jerry, is ongoing community engagement and conversations. Oh, here, yes. See, you forced it out of me, Alder Holmquist. So we had a prospective. Well, he's a business owner, but a gentleman that was looking to do business in Monona reach out to me by way of our wonderful state senator. And we had a meeting in this room, the three of us did, just to talk about some questions and potential concerns that this gentleman, it's a CBD business. So I am one of the few chiefs in the state that has been for the legalization and regulation of marijuana, decriminalization. And so I tried to reassure him that that is not something that me or our officers are going to sit outside the parking lot, for example, or outside of the store. And CBD oil is it's legal product anyway, but in terms of the concerns that were relayed with respect to the customers coming in and out and the odor of marijuana, for example, that, you know, hemp and the odor of fruit can be very similar. So that meeting went well. The gentleman invited our officer, your officers, to one of his stores in Madison, and that just happened, I think, yesterday. And there was tacos and a tour of the facility, and so there was some positive interaction. And the gentleman, the reason I bring this up is DEIB is because it would be a Black-owned business, and so I of course reached out to our director of economic development, and we had some discussions on any potential barriers that may exist that I might not be privy to, and some of the concerns that were raised in this meeting that we had. So I think, you know, I'd encourage members of the public and people who you know who may have some questions about Monona or things that they hear in the media about Monona PD to please reach out to me. I'm happy to have discussions as I have been prior to this meeting. Continue to do so just to correct some myths that are out there and to try my best to reassure folks that this is a good place to live, work, eat, and have a business.
Wonderful. Where was the Madison spot?
I hope he wants me sharing the name of his business.
True.
There's several, and he's well established.
Okay, wonderful.
I have some questions. Have you heard anything from the Department of Justice about the investigation?
Yes.
Save it for reports.
Did you want?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were heading that way.
We are heading that way. We're almost there.
Okay, fine.
And we'll probably be there now quicker. So while we close that, we'll go on to reports, and we'll start out of order. We'll start with B.
Sure.
There you go.
The answer to your question is yes. We got word a few weeks ago that the Department of Justice, Department of Criminal Investigation has completed their reports and investigation and has forwarded on to the Dane County DA.
Is it public?
No.
No.
So when you find out it's public, because when I find out it's public, they were not necessarily give me any sort of heads up notice. It'll be shared with all once it's been made public, and that is up to DCI to determine when it's been made public, and I believe they're just waiting on feedback or a decision. I don't know how the exact circumstances is involved, because in my opinion, there's nobody to charge, but that's just my opinion. They'll wait to hear back from the DA's office.
To see if there is something to be charged.
Okay. Correct.
You're awesome.
And Mark said in the back room, because he knows well, being a detective for so many years, it could be a while.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you never know how long that's.
You never know how long it'll sit.
Even when you ask them.
Yeah.
Speed it up. All right, we'll jump over to fire.
Very quick report. As most of you are aware, we're down 2 full-time staff. So we had a hiring process for, which was ultimately unsuccessful. We had one candidate that did very well, that backed out before the PSC meeting that was supposed to occur 2 nights ago. We're going to try and work with that candidate to address their concerns. They were scared, basically. Fairly young individual, big life change move for them, and they in simple terms freaked out. Asked to still be on the list, and I'm like, well, you're pretty much the list. So
yeah, don't tell them that. No.
So we reposted the job on Monday. We've made some changes. Working with the union to do some MOUs to address some possible hiring conditions. Hopefully attract some other candidates, which we're working through currently. Similar to what police have done with, hey, as long as you have X, we'll put you through school for Y, or if you have Y, we'll put you through school for X. Please apply and we'll look at it on an individual basis. But some of that will take some MOU work with the union, which we're about 95% there. We've got some wording things to work with, which we'll be with them on Friday, and hopefully get those solidified to go to finance, hopefully in the next finance meeting. So, including a possible offering of lateral wage, that sort of thing, or we get an experienced and qualified person. As of this week, we're actually down a 3rd full-time member who injured their knee while off duty. You can call it luck or whatever, but it happened to be the shift that had 3 people on it still, so it didn't really affect too much for minimum staffing. We have been getting a ton of volunteer applications in. We're bringing on a maximum of 6 new folks in April. We've actually been maintaining our volunteers, with the exception of one which we had to let go last month due to some issues, both internally and externally. But other than that, it's just been busy. And I think I'm at 69 hours this week already.
Oh
so,
my God.
It's only Wednesday.
Yeah, it's only Wednesday. So I'll be in for a 24 on Friday as well.
Best day ever.
Best day ever. I'm still smiling. And it might be the crazy in me, but I'm still smiling. So it is good. So no, everything's going as best as we can hope right now. So
Do volunteers go through criminal background checks?
yes.
They do. Okay.
Detective Losby is very thorough in his volunteers all the way to full-time. They all go through the same background check. He does reference checks, he does background checks, he does on everybody. So
Sometimes we knock on doors.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
yes.
Especially for the full-time hires.
Yeah.
Or for the volunteers, but especially full-time.
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to add with the alder's permission, number one, Jerry asked me to be part of the oral panel for his latest process, and I was completely blown away, as the rest of the others on the panel, about this candidate who he's offered a job to, contingent on PFC. And so I think we need to think about in terms, and two elected officials here, in terms of incentives and helping people to sort of take that leap of faith, really. And a lot of that are barriers such as moving expenses and some sort of reassurance about, you know, even though there never is, because they're at-will employees for the probationary period as defined by the commission, Public Safety Commission. But let's just be creative. And you all helped me be creative in sending people to the police academy and paying for them and signing a contract. And, you know, they had some reassurances that they were going to get health insurance and compensation, and that we would support them. I think, you know, as Jerry's working with the union and developing MOUs, I think, you know, my ask is that just as wonderful as you were with me, so let's be just as creative with the fire department, because again, I was completely floored by this candidate, and I respect why, and I get why. I was a 22-year-old moving from Chicago when I came here for the job, and it was nerve-wracking for me to take that leap of faith. But it was also disappointing, because she is still a really good, in my opinion, candidate, and I think would fit in well here. And I think every single one of us who took part of that process was on the same page, which is rare.
From the medical director on down, I mean, everybody was like, you need to hire her, you need to hire her like right now. And that's it's rare to get a good candidate like that.
And what was the piece that's missing then? What is the part you're talking about that?
I mean, every person's going to be different, but I think, you know, I try to identify what maybe the potential barriers are, be it moving expense, be it some sort of job guarantee for 6 months, pending, you know, depending on, you know, if there's something self-inflicted wound, like they screwed up, you know, but some sort of guarantee that they're going to leave their very solid position as a 23-year-old and, you know, developing their skills and taking a leap of faith to come to Monona, Wisconsin.
So do you feel like there was an action that you were considering that council?
I think it's something we need to talk about. Again, we're dealing with it via MOU this time, because to be frank, I just don't have the time to work it all the way through council. I just simply don't have the time. So we're addressing it with an MOU, and we can address it more completely. This contract's only a 1-year contract, so we can address it more fully once we're past this hiring process. So what we're proposing, and in the interest of total disclosure, I don't require an MOU to do the changes that I want in some areas. So what we're proposing is something similar to police, and it's already posted that if you have your fire certifications that we require, but you have an EMT license or advanced EMT license, well, we could possibly hire you and put you through paramedic school, and we would pay for that. Where the union gets involved is, while they're in that status, they get paid 10% less. So they do get a full-time job, but while we're putting them through school that the city would be paying for, they make less than what the union contract allows them to make. So that requires an MOU from the union. Or if they have a unrestricted paramedic license in the state, but they don't have their fire training, same thing. We can bring you on board, get you on board as a full-time employee, put you through the fire academy, which would be a preference because it's much faster, much cheaper. But while they're doing that, they get paid 10% less than what they're allowed under union contract.
Okay, so you have what you think you need to
after this process, I'd like to make it more permanent. And again, I'm going to reach out to the candidate tomorrow and try and find out what the reasons are and what we can do to help address that. Because what I'd like to do is slot her back in. She's already finished our process.
Okay.
So when this process comes to an end at the end of March, we can add her to come up to the PSC for their process.
Okay.
Without having to go through the whole thing again.
You all, as you know, have already provided retention for all of us, and we're very appreciative of that. I remain appreciative of that. But in terms of what we're up against with other agencies, and I'm not saying that this is what is keeping, because it isn't, in my understanding, but a hiring bonus.
Hmm.
Because that might help, and number one, and that people don't do this for the money all the time. But in terms of, I keep bringing up moving expense and, you know, some of these other, the in-between pay periods and some buffer to help them out in what has sometimes become a barrier from persons leaving their current full-time solid positions to taking, again, like a better term, this leap of faith over here to Monona.
Yeah, and I'll play off on that because again, and police are the same way as fire. We're all fishing in the same pool.
Yes.
Especially in the Dane County area. There's a very limited pool number of people to pull from, and our wages are average is about the best that they're average. But what we offer is not enough to pull somebody away. We can't pull somebody away from Pittsburgh or Sun Prairie or we just don't offer enough money to be able to pull them. I know police face the same issues with Dane County Sheriff's Office. They offer a lot of money and they do that because then it helps pull people. They can pull people and offer benefits that we simply don't have the ability to offer. So we're pulling people from further away. So this particular candidate lives in Delaware.
Delaware?
Delavan. So that's one of the other MOUs is removing our residency requirement in the contract is striking that because right now it was 25 miles now it's 50 in the current contract. Just want to remove it, to be honest. There's no value to it anymore. There was a lot of value 20 years ago when you had a lot of people here and not a lot of jobs. You get a lot more candidates. We simply don't get the local candidates.
It's expensive, as you all know, to live in Dane County.
Yeah.
And so that's the challenge as well. So in terms of where this money is going to come from, well, if we already have a vacancy, you already have a pool of money, salary savings. So I would just love the authorization to say, I've got $3,000 sitting in, you know, my line item for salaries anyway. Can I use that as a hiring bonus to try to get folks who are maybe on the line, who are qualified candidates who the PFC absolutely loves and says, yes, this is your number one. I would love to be able to offer that to that person instead of them going to Fitchburg or Dane County or some other community.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, to piggyback on your point from before, as someone who's been on PFC for a while, since you started offering that, we're getting a different pool of candidates in than we used to get. And I think that's a good thing. And not every one of them has worked out perfectly because that's probably not a realistic expectation for it to do so. But we've had a lot of good hires who are working out and aren't the sorts of people we were able to hire in 2014 or something like that. So
all right, the PFC's number 2 in the current panel that is going to expire here soon. I think it is. Yeah. He reached out again to see if we had any vacancies, and he was a close number 2. I mean that he was a very good candidate with no prior law enforcement experience that I think impressed the public police and fire commission, certainly impressed me enough to bring them to the police and fire commission. And that would be a person that has to relocate with spouse and kid in tow to here to do this job. And so then again, there's the academy. And we would put him through an academy. Yeah, that's right? A big leap of faith. But wants to do it here. And everyone's hiring. So his name, he's probably going to work at a community somewhere near you. So yeah. But still wanted to let me know Monona is still my number 1. Right. So I'd love to have that opportunity to help that person make that.
Did he or she say why? Monona.
Why Monona?
Yeah.
Of course we asked that question. I'm sure I'm not in the room when the PFC does an interview.
Oh, okay.
It was a compelling enough reason.
Okay. All right.
And that's our hope, is we can draw some different candidates, which I've already reached out. We had a couple of people reach out that have a paramedic license but no fire stuff. Well, one of the candidates has worked almost 9 years in San Diego at 911 service as a paramedic. Well, that's plenty of paramedic service for me. Why he's coming to Wisconsin, I have no idea. Exactly. So somebody like that I can take and I can put through the fire academy. It takes 5 weeks. There's one that starts in June, and have them on board running quickly. So we're hoping that we draw some different candidates. The long-term goal is being able to again, one of the provisional ideas is, hey, you have your fire service, but you may not have your medic yet, is being able to provide an upgrade path for our volunteers that want to get into this industry as a career to say, hey, this is a promotional opportunity for you. Currently, we just don't have the staff to do that because with minimum staffing, hiring somebody without a medic license doesn't do me much good when we're as thin as we are staffing, but we'll still take them and score them, but they'll score lower on the rubric when they apply. But we're hopeful that this will provide some additional candidates for consideration. And the creative, how we can help draw people and again, and help pull people away. That's the big thing. We're not going to pull folks from Dane County. We're just not going to. We don't offer enough money. I couldn't offer them enough relocation bonus to leave their 15-year gig at Fitchburg where they're making $100,000 a year. I can't offer that. But hopefully we can get some of the outlying areas that also have full-time staff that pay similar or slightly less than us to be, hey, we can offer this. You've been running for 5 years at Watertown. Well, I can do a lateral wage increase for you, put you at the 5-year mark and offer you this to make the move. So yes, I think some creative hiring practices are going to be coming down the pipeline. So
good.
So we might need this committee support at some point and then recommendation of finance. And then
so long term, definitely. As I say short term, just so you're up to speed on what's it, because again, the MOUs that go to finance and personnel and all that, it's a contract issue, but just so you're aware of what's happening. But long term, I'd like to establish that as more of a hiring practice rather than doing it last minute because we're down 2 people.
And you're tired.
he's tired.
Best day ever. I'm good. I mean, this is a relatively short night tonight, so.
Yeah, I'm curious though. You were applying for an ISO rating from 3 to 2.
I was attempting to get us to a 2.
Right.
We're not quite there yet.
Okay.
The biggest jump from 3 to 2 deals with staffing more than anything.
Oh.
But it also comes with some of the more detailed training and record keeping than what we've traditionally done. So we've made some moves this year to start gathering more points from that particular area. So
okay, but we have some more work to do.
Yeah, the biggest penalty is staffing.
Right.
That's where the biggest penalty occurs is the staffing.
Okay.
3 is about as good as you're going to get with a volunteer agent with volunteers.
And there are rankings within 3, right?
Yes.
Where are we in?
3B. So
3B.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
But I have 5 years to work on that. I'm 35 years to do the reclass.
Oh, gotcha.
We got a little time.
Yes.
Joe, anything from police commission? Well, we didn't end up meeting, so maybe we'll meet again soon. Yeah, nothing more from best meeting you've had this year so far. All right. Next scheduled meetings end of March, and not sure about the agenda items. Well, as we get closer, we'll let you know. We're kind of getting into that cycle where things start to bubble up, and we always have that balance of trying to meet what we need to meet, but then also take off some months as we start to head into the spring and summer months if we can. So we'll try to do our best to consolidate if we can.
The chief and I at staff today just got notice of, because of the referendum, we're gonna probably start working on our operating budgets here soon, and I'm guessing capital budgets, so expect that to come sooner than normal.
And there'll likely be more than one version we'll need to discuss. That's your teaser. More than one version. All right. Item 10 is motion for adjournment.
So moved.
A second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Thank you guys for joining.
Have a good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Night.
Have a good evening.
Two.
Not for review or anything, but next month I'll have a list of updated policies. Just so you know what